Cảm ơn quý vị đã chờ đợi để tiếp tục theo dõi bản tin qua tình đốn. Sau đây kính mời quý vị theo dõi phần phỏng vấn đặc biệt cùng với Thượng nghị sĩ Mark Warner.
Good morning. It's an honor for us to have Senator Warner here with us in the studio this morning. Welcome, Mr. Senator.
Thank you for letting me appear.
First, I want to go to the U.S.-Vietnam relations. As you know, that the administration has decided to ease embargoes to Vietnam. We want to know what your standing on that.
I am very concerned about the regime in Hanoi and how it treats political prisoners, how it does not respect religious freedom. So I am concerned that if America releases too much of its embargo, it may be too much of a green light for the regime in Hanoi to continue its practices of political prosecution. I think there are great common interests between our countries. I think Vietnam is obviously very concerned about the growing influence of China. I think obviously America is concerned about the growing influence of China. So I think there are opportunities for stronger relations between our nations. But my hope would be that the regime in Hanoi would recognize that if it wants a full partnership with America, it must make more political freedom and less political prosecution of dissidents in Vietnam.
I know for sure that not only you, but all the senators would like to see a better relations between U.S. and Vietnam. So, to be honored, that it must be based on values. Vietnamese people and American people have the same values.
Yes.
However, the government's not. How to fix that, Mr. Governor?
That is a very challenging issue because we've seen the Vietnamese people who've come to America, how strong their communities are here in Virginia and in California, elsewhere. It is a real story of American success story of the Vietnamese community who've come here. I think we have to keep enormous pressure on the regime in Hanoi to allow more freedom, more religious freedom, and to say that if you want an equal relationship, if you want to open up more relationships with the United States, that we have to keep the pressure on very strongly. I work, for example, with Senator John Cornyn from Texas, who's been a leader on relations with keeping pressure on the government in Hanoi. And I think it's important, very important that we keep that pressure on.
Just assume that after the election, and then you have a chance to meet with the Vietnamese leadership, either here in Washington, D.C., or you might go to Hanoi and visit Vietnam. What do you plan to tell them?
I plan to tell them that if you want to be a full partner with the United States, if you want to be a true modern nation in the 21st century, you have to respect human rights, you have to respect religious rights, you have to not only open the nation economically, but you have to get rid of some of the camps that still exist in Vietnam that detain people that are inappropriate for a modern nation. So the question is, how do we keep building this relationship but keep the pressure on?
And now we go to state of Virginia,
Yes,
your state. What do you happy the most when you think of state of Virginia? What did you happy the most in the last 6 years? And what did you concern the most in the last 6 years?
Well, I'm very happy even a little bit before that. When I was governor, Virginia had a big deficit, $6 billion deficit. When I left as governor, it had $1 billion surplus. And Virginia got named the best managed state and the best state for business. And I was very, very proud of that. Now, in the Senate, it's been more difficult to build the same kind of bipartisan coalitions. I've been in business longer than I've been in politics. I know many My Vietnamese friends are in business as well, small businesses. And if you're a small business person, you know that the way you get measured is how much money you make at the end of each year. In politics, too many people are about yelling at the other side as opposed to working together. So I think there are two things that I've been working on a lot. One is trying to deal with our country's $17 trillion in debt. Think about that, $17 trillion in debt. And then both the Republicans and the Democrats have been responsible for that. And if we don't bring down that debt, that our children or our grandchildren won't have the same opportunities that we had. So how do we work together to get that done? And so I start every piece of legislation I work on with a Republican partner. Because I think if you start from the middle and build out, that is the way you get things done in business and in politics. What has been the biggest disappointment for me in the Senate are the voices, the loud voices on the extremes. You know, my opponent, for example, has taken many positions that I feel are not in the best interests of all Virginia people. He is very much just, he called himself a partisan warrior. I think the last thing America needs is another partisan warrior from either political party. I think we need to represent, for example, I'm a strong supporter of immigration reform. I was the first governor to start an Asian American Advisory Committee for for Virginia, because when Virginia brings in all its people and puts them in positions of power, that helps everyone. My opponent, unfortunately, opposes immigration reform. So I think there are still much work to do, but I feel like if I get rehired, if the people of Virginia are good enough to rehire me, I will go back and work even harder to make sure that we do things in our national level like we've done in Virginia.
Do you think that immigration reform will be passed in the next 2 years?
I think it has to be passed because our immigration system is so broken now. We see so many families who, for example, from the Vietnamese community, who have family members in Vietnam waiting years and years to come to be reunited with their loved ones here. We have a system that does not allow, if a young woman from Vietnam comes and studies and gets a PhD in engineering, she can't stay here in the United States. She has to go to Canada because Canada has changed its immigration laws. That's crazy. If we want America to continue to attract the best and the brightest in the world. And my hope will be that we will get immigration reform done.
Just earlier you mentioned opportunities. If you have, probably that all Vietnamese Americans that you have met, they will tell you the opportunity starts with education.
Yes.
How to improve education system here
Well,
in the US?
I think there are two things we could focus on. One is we need to make sure that our education system is not always based on tests. There is a bill called No Child Left Behind, which makes that too much of our education system is just on test, test, test. And we need to measure, but we need to allow students to learn in a variety of ways. The second issue that is very important is I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. And I failed my first 2 times at business. And this country was great enough to give me a third opportunity, and I did very well. I started the cell phone company Nextel. I worry about so many of our young people now coming out with so much student debt. I came out with $15,000 of student debt. I see too many of our young people with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of student debt. And if we can't find a way to make college more affordable, and I have some bipartisan ideas on this, like capping student debt at 10% of your income, so your student debt could not exceed 10% of your income each year. That would give people more opportunities, the ability to make sure people understand all of the choices they have in higher education. But I hear more about student debt issues than almost any other issue. And unless we find ways to refinance or bring student debt down and make college more affordable, we're going to take a whole generation of young people and take away a great opportunity from them.
Most Asian Americans come to the US and they start small business. Mm-hmm. They need all the help they can get. How can we help them?
Well, as someone who started small businesses myself, as someone who was an entrepreneur longer than I've been in politics, I think there are a few things we can do. We need to cut down on the amount of regulations. It's much too bureaucratic to start a small business. The amount of paperwork and regulations you have to file, it's crazy. We could do this much more easily. And secondly, I think the Vietnamese community does it very well because sometimes the community comes together and helps someone who wants to start a business with early stage capital. I was a venture capitalist, so I know about starting businesses. I think there is an opportunity that maybe all of your viewers are not familiar with called crowdfunding, which is the ability to raise money over the internet for a business. It is a new form of fundraising. There will be some mistakes made in it, but I think it is a tool that we could use. So I think access to capital, less bureaucracy, a clearer tax code that does not penalize small businesses so much. I mean, if you're a large business, you don't pay anything close to the 35% rate because you can find tax loopholes. I think if you're a small business, you pay retail, you pay 35%. So I have been involved very much in the efforts to bring down our national debt, and that says part of it means we need a tax code that's simpler, flatter, with a lower rate, but a rate that everyone pays, so that if you're big and you have lots of accountants, you don't find ways to get around the rules.
My last question,
Yes.
Mr. Senator. I remember 6 years ago in Denver, I called you Mr. Governor. Now in Washington, D.C., I call you Mr. Senator. Are you thinking about 2016?
I am thinking only about seeing if the people of Virginia will rehire me on Tuesday. I think I can bring value to our country if I can help bridge the gap between Republicans and Democrats. And then who knows what the future holds. But the future, first of all, should be how can I help in the United States Senate?
My listener, definitely, we all know that you have a strong bond with President Clinton. Hillary Clinton?
I need to just win this election. That's all I want to say right now.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Senator.
you. Thank you much.
Thank you.